Oh, hi. Welcome to Aquata Zoo, where we like to nerd out over all things zoo and aquarium related. I'm l.semple, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about being the change you want to see. We spent a lot of time recently kind of going over the less desirable methods and behaviors that you might see in leaders around you or that you might be exhibiting yourself and learning how to recognize those things. And then just working with it, doing the best you can, navigating around it, and trying to respond in a healthy way. And so I thought maybe it would be a good idea to get into more of the positive things. Like, what can you do instead of these less desirable behaviors and these less desirable management types and leadership styles? What other options might you have? Even if you're not a leader by title or by authority, there are things that you can do that may make the situation better for you, for your team, for your coworkers, whatever. And to be fair, there are also things that you could do that make things worse. But we're going to focus on the good stuff, right? And we're going to talk about how to be the change that you would like to see. So in this case, we're talking about maybe a behavior or a situation that you're in and you don't want to see your leadership or your teammates doing this, kind of toxic behavior, whether it's being non-confrontational and not helping each other out or telling each other how you can improve, giving feedback, or if it's just straight authoritarian leadership where somebody's trying to make the call about how everything's going to go, whether they have the knowledge or not listening to anybody's input. There's all these behaviors that can happen in a workplace, and you may be thinking to yourself that you're not sure how to deal with it. Like you feel kind of powerless, I guess. And I've been there, done that. Felt very powerless and didn't know what to do. And so this idea of being the change you want to see is a way out of it. And I will say it's not easy, and people may question why you're doing it. But in the end, some of these behaviors counteract the more undesirable or negative ones, and you may find yourself in a position of influence, if not authority, so that you have people behind you that support you, that understand you're just trying to do what's best for the team or what's best for them. It may kind of feel like it's political, you're maneuvering for politics reasons or something like that. But in the end, like, if you're really kind of making positive changes for yourself and your coworkers to survive in an environment that is not appealing, then over time, they're going to come to understand and come to view you as a professional, as a role model. And so that's good. We want that. It helps you get things done because you have some influence there. You have people that will work with you and not be resistant just because they're tired or they're burnt out or they're frustrated. You'll have some support to get things done in a productive way, in a positive way that kind of ignores what other options there might be within your, department, your team. And so despite having perhaps some leadership that is not necessarily ideal for the work that you're trying to do or for the participants in your group, you now have an option, because if you take it upon yourself to act the way that you want others to act, or to kind of give a subtle, but it is still a clue to your leadership, this is what I want to see, by acting it out, they might take notice and realize that you have a much better effectiveness with the team than they do with whatever more negative method of leadership that they've tried to employ. It may be confusing for them at first, but they may very well ask you what's going on and how you managed to do it when they couldn't. Sure, it could lead to some sort of promotion or additional responsibility or something like that. I don't want to frame it like that though, because that's not always the case. It really depends on the organization and how they do their hiring and how they do their promotions and if there's room for you. There's a lot of different factors involved. And so we're just looking at this from a personal success kind of standpoint, right? You want to see a certain type of behavior or a certain, I don't know, vibe in your group and you're not seeing it. And so you are making the decision to act that way anyway. You're serving as the example and kind of hoping that people will follow. And sometimes they won't. And even if that's the case, you're trying. And that is something, because giving up and not trying to do anything at all and just letting fate be without any intervention from you is a really demoralizing position to be in. And you feel powerless, and you then convince yourself that you are powerless. And so I'm here to convince you that you're not. You can make the change. You can be the change that you want to see in other people. So I'm being kind of philosophical about this, I guess. Let's talk about a real life example. So I went to a facility where the norm, the culture of the facility was to write these passive aggressive notes in daily logs. So we'd be there taking care of animals, doing our thing, and when I came in, I was sort of appalled seeing these logs. The actual purpose was to write down little notes about what was done and what happened for that section, that area, that gallery maybe, and so that the next person who comes in after you understands what was going on. Also, it serves as just like a note. You can write notes to yourself, like this animal, you observe this behavior on this day. And so that serves as a record. You can flip back to it and you know when you wrote that record. It's on that day. So it's just a method of record keeping, but the main idea is to not only record what animals are doing or what changes have happened, but also as a communication log between staff members. And I saw that staff were writing each other these notes that were so passive aggressive and silly and useless. They just felt juvenile to me. They're very snippy, and I thought it was so unprofessional. And so I just kind of tried to figure out what was going on here. Why is this the norm? And it turned out that the friction between some of the team members was palpable. It was pretty strong. Not everybody got along, and there was not necessarily a specific reason for that. Some people just decide they don't like other people, right? And so they kind of made it known and chose to, rather than like adults talk things out and come to a mutual understanding of what's going on, they would just write each other these snippy notes and progressively get more angry with each other. It was basically breeding this sort of anger and frustration through written notes. So person A would say, sure would be nice if anybody would clean up their mess after they've made it in this area. And it would have been something like a project that was ongoing. You get all of your tools out and you have them there and you're working on your thing. And if you don't finish, maybe somebody sets those things aside rather than putting everything away and having to go back and amass all those tools that you're using for your project again. They just set them to the side, right? And so there would be a note in the log for something like that says, sure would be nice if you'd clean that up. So I don't have to worry about it and it's not in my way. And in reality, it's not in the way. Everything's fine. Like nothing died. Nothing exploded. And so it would just be kind of back and forth. That person who had that, project stuff out would be like, well, I don't want to waste time. Sorry if you like wasting time looking for the tools that you need. So it would just be like stuff like that, back and forth. You could read the tone pretty clearly. I know it's like written word and that's hard to interpret the tone, but the way they write them, it was pretty clear what the tone was, right? And so I came into this environment where people are snipping back and forth at each other through the written records, which is even worse to me because those records would then be digitized, because this was this was back in my day when we had handwritten notes. But this would then be digitized and put in a permanent record for the gallery or the section or whatever. Would anybody really look at those again? I'm not so sure, unless they were looking for something specific. But regardless, this was then saved for whoever knows how long. For forever, basically. And so you could go back and see these snippy notes. And it was terrible. And this was even before I had any kind of, I guess, formal training in leadership, and was particularly interested in people, you know. I was only interested in animals. I was just here to work with animals. Everybody leave me alone. But I came into this environment and I was like, I don't like this. I don't want people to write me snippy notes. I don't want people to criticize what my work or how I've done something in written form. They can come talk to me. And so I started making the change that I wanted to see. And I did not ever write a grumpy note in the logs, because I purposely would think about what I was going to write, then write it down, then read it for tone, and make sure that it was objective and that it was not angry or frustrated, like that it was just a fact, and it would read very neutrally. And so I started doing that. And then if I saw any snippy notes from my coworkers where they're being frustrated with me or grumpy, I would just go talk to them. Hey, I saw this note. Can you explain more what you mean? Like, I apologized if I need to, if I left out stuff or, handled something wrong. And, at that time, I could take advantage of the fact that I was relatively new to the organization. I could just be like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we had a method for this. And they would say, we don't. This is just how we do it. You should have known. And I could, write it off as, I apologize. I didn't know. I wasn't trained for that. Can you please educate me? Show me how you would do it or how it's supposed to be done. So what this did was it would build a kind of rapport with the other person, right? So they would get called out immediately for writing the nasty note. And therefore, they would feel a little bit of guilt for that. And not that I said anything like, hey, I saw your nasty note, you jerk, like anything like that. It was not like that. I just saw your note. Can you please help me understand, blah, blah, blah. So go to that person, ask for some help, basically. And that really disarms people, They know the tone with which they wrote the note. And they were not expecting, because this was not the norm, for that person to confront them about it and then ask for help. Like, that did not make sense to those folks at the time and to that culture at that moment. What they were used to was just everybody keeping quiet and or start a fight. And it would just spiral out of control and just people being mean to each other. And that's not what we were aiming for. So I just kept talking to everybody. Like, I saw you wrote this note. Is there some way I can help? If it didn't involve me as part of the note, I would, ask if there was some way that I could assist in resolving the problem that I read about in the notes. Over time, what happened was that they noticed that I was not writing the passive-aggressive notes. And I did have people ask me about it. Like, you don't write the notes the same way that the rest of us do. And I just said, listen, this is, record forever. And so I don't want the records forever to show that I'm participating in this kind of note war. And the fact that I'm annoyed at somebody and the way they clean the dishes does not matter to animal care in the future, right? That is between me and that person, and it doesn't need to be immortalized in a note. If I have an issue with them, I'm going to talk to them. And so, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect about this. I'm not, but I would try. I tried really, really hard. I had it in my brain that I wanted to be the change because I wanted to see if I could do it, and B, I was sick of reading all these notes. So eventually, and it took a long time, years probably, that I talked to enough people who were writing all these notes and asking for help and understanding what they were writing about and trying to give my case about not wanting our back and forth to be immortalized in our records. More and more people started to understand. And to be fair, we also hired new people and I was helping with the training, right? And I said, like, please don't write these notes in this way. You know, if you see something, absolutely write it down. But we're talking about animal care here. What is relevant to animal care? Those are the notes that go in this, on this sheet, right? And so over time, I was able to shift the norm of how we write these notes. It shifted from snippiness between keepers in and landed in the more objective, useful information for animal care. I'm not going to say that I did that on my own. I had people who I was talking to about this, and they were like, you know what, that kind of makes sense. I also don't want everyone to remember me forever for writing nasty notes. Like, stuff like that, I would slowly get people on my side and they would stop doing it. And then this one other person would stop doing it and that other person would stop doing it. And so over time, when someone started writing the nasty notes, it stuck out because it didn't match everything else that was in that information for a whole week, right? And so I was slowly able to make that change. I was able to shift the culture, shift the norm, so that the notes that we were writing in our animal care logs were no longer snippy digs at my coworkers. They were objective notes about the care of the animals for that day, observations that we had had, changes that we had made. Like all of that stuff, it was just factual information in case anyone ever needed that in the future. And that's how record keeping for animal care should be kept. And it really kind of toned down the anger in the department because everybody wasn't coming in and writing or reading all of these passive aggressive notes about themselves from their coworkers. It was just ratcheting up anger and frustration with each other, you know? It wasn't helping bond the team. It was actually helping to fuel a fire of fighting and anger and just discord in the group. So that little change helped with a lot of success later. You know, we had a lot of personnel problems in our group, and it's just kind of started with these little things. It was such a small thing to change the tone of everyone's notes and to shift the purpose of why they're writing them. And all of a sudden it made the anger tone down a little bit, and then it made it easier to highlight the next things that needed to be fixed and to handle all of those things a little easier just because not everyone was so angry, you know? We toned it down just a little bit. So things that were still wrong still stuck out more because we fixed this other thing, and it made it a little bit easier to handle because the rage was not off the charts. So that's one example. I didn't have any authority at all. I was just talking. I'm not naturally a great people person either. I have to work at that. But in this case, even before I had the awareness that I was not really great with people, I just knew for the animal's sake, for welfare's sake, I wanted to have these records be objective and fair and not mean. Like the passive aggressive tone of all these notes did not help with animal care. And framing that when I would, talk to other people about it, framing that around I'm striving for the best animal care and the best animal welfare kind of disarms people, especially in animal care, because that's what we're all working for. We want animal welfare to be tip top. That's what we're aiming for. That's what we're trying to do every day, all day. And so framing it as I don't feel like these notes and this passive aggressive tone are helpful for animal welfare, that changed everything for the coworkers that I was kind of trying to convince we didn't need to do this. Another common one is just trying to be efficient and get things done. Not standing around and talking, but just trying to work and get through the tasks that need to get done. Accountability and initiative. are kind of what I'm talking about here. So not even related to animal care. I've worked retail jobs where I was a new hire and I'm just trying to go. I'm trying to get things done. You give me a list of stuff that's happening that needs to get done by the end of the night before we close, and I'm on it. I can do the things that need to get done. Once I get into my rhythm, I'll develop like a routine to it, and I'm just going to go boop 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 getting all the things done. Now, this can kind of go one of two ways. You either have the people who are kind of watching you go and being like, "Hey, wait." And they'll step up and step up their game and kind of join you in that race to get things done. Not doing things quickly just for the sake of getting through the list, but like working hard, getting things done and being efficient with your time. I would just frame it as I just want to get out of here on time. I don't want to lag around. I don't want things to be left undone, and I want to be fair to the opening crew. I was usually closing when I was working retail. So I didn't want to leave things in a bad mess when at the end of the night, when I could have, had things cleaned up and tidy and ready to go for the morning shift. Because again, what I do and how that affects my other coworkers, like I want it to be a good effect. I want them to appreciate when I'm there to close, because if I'm not there, it doesn't get done as well, But when you're working with people who are kind of inspired by that and driven by that, they'll work hard too. The other option, the other way that this could go, is that somebody could just let you do all of the work and they don't do anything. That is just sheer laziness a lot of the time. I know everybody's got their days, they're not feeling well, and so they're kind of slacking a little bit. I do it as well. We're just human. Sometimes we can't work at 100%, and that's okay. You're just trying to get through the night, right? And so the folks, though, who choose to let you do all of the work, they are very frustrating. But they also weed themselves out. So when you're paired with somebody and you're working really hard and you're showing them the example, they may not pick up on it, or they may choose to ignore it, and they may not pick up their fair share and try and match you. They may not want to meet you in the realm of efficiency, and that will not always go unnoticed. You know what I mean? So you will be noticed for having done a lot of things. Your fingerprint, your touch will be on the things that you are doing because you're good at what you do and you're being efficient and you're able to get a lot more done. And so those people who choose to not step it up and not meet you where you are in efficiency and at least trying. They don't have to do it perfectly like you do, but they should at least try, right? The people who don't weed themselves out. And that is just how it goes. Whether they just decide to join you and kind of step it up and take on more and look to learn and grow as a professional, or they lean back on the counter and do nothing more and just watch you run around. It is frustrating when it happens, but it ends up, in all of my years of working customer service and retail, it does work itself out, and you will still be there and they will not. Or you move on to greater, bigger, better things and they stay where they are and get frustrated. And I know this can kind of sound entitled, old school mentality, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That is not what I mean here. If you show the initiative to try to get a little bit better and try to grow for your benefit, not necessarily for anybody else's, but if you're trying to do that, it will benefit others as well, just by default. But just try. That's all I'm asking. There's a lot of people who work in today's age and yesterday's age that don't want to work, and that's their choice, but you're not going to be working around me like that. I'm going to keep doing what I need to do, and the gap between us is going to look very substantial. But in the end, I want you to feel like you can. Please don't feel powerless. You have choices in all of these situations, and I don't know your nuanced, very specific situation, but I'm sure that there are avenues by which you can make the conscious choice to not be powerless and to just simply start doing what you need to do and painting the picture that you want to see. You know what I mean? So if that means that you are working super efficiently, then go do that. If that means that you just refuse to participate in the negative things that are happening here, then so be it. Like I was with the notes, I didn't want any part of it. I didn't want that to be immortalized forever. I made that choice, and so I stuck to objective things. So basically, just do what you can to kind of hone your own behavior to model what you would like to see. Because whether other people pick up on it or not, and they will, you are at least granting yourself a little bit of peace. You are okay with yourself doing this kind of stuff. And no one can really argue with that, right? If you're avoiding negative behavior by engaging in positive behavior, you're not going to get fired. Like it's very unlikely because you're probably doing things right that a boss or a high up manager wants to see. And if you were to get in, quote unquote in trouble for that, it's because there's a whole bunch of dysfunction between that person and you. And so just give it a shot. And if that's the case, if you were to get let go or something because you're too positive or too efficient or too much, you're doing your own thing versus what everyone else is doing, then that place never was meant to have you. You know, you will find something much better. Get yourself out of that negative situation, because if you're going to quote unquote get in trouble for doing something well, doing something right, doing something positive, then you should not be in that situation with all these negative, wrongdoer, questionably behaving people. You should not be there with them. You should find a new place that understands your value and can treat you better, just for your own mental health. You have a choice here. You can choose what parts of the behavior you want to engage in. And you may just choose a piece and roll with it, and you never know how that's going to snowball and change your entire culture. I didn't think that my personal little rebellion about the notes would change the entire culture. I didn't know that that was going to be the first stepping stone to fixing a lot of what was wrong with my department. There were lots of things wrong, and we didn't get them all fixed, at least while I was there. But I was able to make that little change. And that little change eventually led the way to other changes. It gave me confidence that I could do it. And once I realized at that particular employer that no one wanted to engage with me anymore and try to make the positive change, that's when I left. Because I knew it wasn't going to work for me anymore, because they were not coming along with me. And you may find that at some point, that people are just almost enraged at you because you want to make positive change. Been there, done that. And that was my cue. I knew I needed to go. And it has been great since I left, because it was not the right environment for me, at least at that time. And so that may be the case for you, and it may be a harsh pill to swallow. Because I know that I've had jobs where I really fully intended to retire from there. Like, I wanted to work there for the rest of my career, at least in my, rose-colored glasses stage. And then I came to realize that that was never going to happen, and that I needed to cut my losses or go down with them and become a bitter, angry person, like many of them could become. You're surrounded by that negativity, and if you're not making the effort to try and be the positive in it, it gets really difficult and very dark, and it will take your brain to dark places. And I recognized that was happening to me, and realized I needed to move on, found a new place, and it's been fine. So I've been much better off. I've been able to make my positive changes elsewhere, and it's been great. And so I wish the same for you. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't know what to do and you feel like you're powerless, just do what you can to save your own sanity and provide that example for your coworkers. And so they can observe and understand what you're going for, and then they can change their behavior too, right? You're helping each other turn this ship around. If you have any questions about that or any other leadership or management things or zoo and aquarium stuff, let me know. You can write it up in an email and send it to me at aquatazoo@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, and I hope that you do, don't forget you can follow or subscribe on your podcast player of choice. That way you'll get all of that sweet, sweet content as soon as it releases. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can find me at patreon.com/aquatazoo. And if you're looking to take a vacation and you don't know where to start, I happen to be a personal vacation advisor with Magical Vacation Planner, and I would love to help you out. It does not cost you anything extra. The links are in the show notes. Okay. Thanks for listening. I heart your faces. Okay, bye.